Can Morgan Rielly revive his career at the World Championships? And it seems like we're getting close to an announcement on the Leafs front office.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Dave, what's happening, pal? How are we feeling on a Wednesday?
Well, feeling better than the Ducks currently are feeling right now, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, they're getting waxed about midway through the second period as of the recording of this, and down 4-1. Not a fun time for. I mean, they're up 3-1 the series. I mean, they were due. We were bound to see this Oilers team kind of arrive, and now you start to wonder: can they complete the comeback? Is this the turning point in the series? If they play the way that they did here in Game 5, I think it is very possible. We can get more into what's going on around the league in the third segment. We'll go through some NHL news and notes. The Sabres unable to eliminate the Boston Bruins. That game went to overtime. And the Wild also winning and taking a 3-2 series lead on the Dallas Stars. So we'll get into all that in a little bit. We'll get you an update on the Sundin situation and how the entire organization is waiting on Sundin to make a decision and what the follow could be from there. But I want to start with a conversation with you, Dave. I was kind of thinking about this. Yesterday we got the news that Morgan Rielly was going to be going over and playing with Team Canada, playing in the World Championships. And it really got me thinking, like, going into the summer, there's going to be a lot of conversation about, whether or not whatever GM comes in, will they make the difficult decision and, ask Morgan Rielly to waive his no trade clause and figure out a way to get Rielly moved on to greater pastures. It does seem to be, a likely thing to happen this summer. At least it seems more likely this summer than it ever had in the past. Do you think it's possible, though? First of all, actually, before we get into reinventing his value and reinventing himself, what do you think his trade value is right now? Like, if whoever, let's say, Sundin gets the job, sounds like Sundin, maybe Chayka is the GM in waiting, whoever it is, GM, first day on the job, he starts putting out feelers for Morgan Rielly. What do you think the response is around the league?
Yeah, so like the thing for me when it comes to Morgan Rielly, and I was just going to actually look at one thing here. Like,
he's got 4 years left on his deal at $7.25 million.
The contract's the first hurdle for teams are going to have to figure out. But I know defensively he's a mess. He had 11 goals last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's funny because only like one goal on the power. Like, it's funny. Each of the last 4 years, she's only had one single goal on the power play as a top option on the power play. But like, he's still a guy who can put the puck in the net. He can still produce offensively, and he's played over 20 minutes a night. I think a team could find value in that if they put him in the right situation. The problem is his contract would suggest, well, it's not going to be as a third line player because you can't really justify paying a third pairing defenseman that kind of money. So they're either going to ask the Leafs, if you want us to really consider taking on Morgan Rielly, they might ask the Leafs to eat some of the salary to make that work. The compensation they're going to get is not going to be as much as the Leafs would want. And I don't know if the Leafs are going to really going to be able to command a lot.
Or you're going to have to take back bad salary in return.
Yes.
Like those are the three options at this point. You're not going to get top value from Morgan Rielly. You're not going to get what you would have 4 or 5 years ago from Morgan Rielly. We know this. So yeah, those are the one of three options. Either you're going to have to take some money back and retain, on the trade. You're either going to have to, decide, okay, we'll trade you at full freight, but it's basically just going to be a cap dump, but you're not going to get anything for him. Or you could make a trade, but you got to make the salaries match, and you're probably going to take back some bad money in return. So those are going to be the three options that the Maple Leafs are going to have. I think it does make some sense for the Leafs to explore possibly retaining and getting, a little bit more value out of a Morgan Rielly. Because I'd heard some people also throw out the possibility of them maybe buying him out if there's no trade partner. It just doesn't make any sense to buy him out. It's going to cost you $3.5 million against the cap for the next 4 years, and then $2 million against the cap and dead cap 4 years after that. So he'd be on the books for 8 years if you bought him out, and pretty much making half that. You're not getting anything for it except cap space. You're honestly better off retaining that $3 million and not having that dead cap after the contract is over, and you're able to get an asset for it. So I don't believe that when it comes to Morgan Rielly, a buyout is going to be the route in which they go in. No. However, I do think that cap retention does make a lot of sense. And all of a sudden, like, let's say you retain $3.25 million, right? Which is basically what a buyout would cost you. Maybe you don't want to retain that much. Maybe it's $2.25 million you retain per year. That makes Morgan Rielly a $5 million player. You can justify Morgan Rielly at $5 million as a guy who can get the puck out. He doesn't have to play 25 minutes a night. He can play, on second pair, third pair. You could justify that at $5 million. Ben Sherrod's paying third pair minutes, making $5 million a year. Nowadays, top end third pair guys seem to be getting paid that type of dough. So I think that you could probably argue that would be the best route to go. And I still think that there'd be value there. And there actually is, Dave, there is like a model for that. And it's the Seth Jones deal from Chicago to Florida a couple of years ago. And Seth Jones reinvented himself when he went to the Florida Panthers. And, they took a shot. They gave up a lot to get him, right? They gave up a first-round pick and Spencer Knight. But they took on Seth Jones, who they thought would be able to reinvent his game in a different role. Didn't have to be the guy like he was asked to be in Chicago. Played more second, third pair minutes on a championship team. And all of a sudden, he found himself and reinvigorated his career. And now he's back to being, a really good two-way defenseman. Is that possible for Morgan Rielly? I think it is. I think it is possible in the right situation that he could have a similar impact on a team. Not as a top pair guy, but as a bottom four guy. And it's a lot easier to do that if you're willing to eat some money long term. It'll make it far easier for teams to, first of all, take on that contract, take on that liability, and give you something in return for it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, the Leafs have really struggled with assets and managing assets and getting proper value in a lot of ways. And I do look at I look at the Seth Jones is actually probably a really, and I know some people might not agree with that comparison. I actually think it's quite similar in that people have to remember how bad it was getting in Chicago.
Dude, go look at his numbers. You look at his numbers, he was 3 years in a row. He had less than 40 points. He was -38, -15, -18. The year that he was traded, he was a -18, which is 27 points in 42 games when he was traded to the Florida Panthers. So it's not like this guy was playing lights out or playing at the top of his game. He was a diminished asset, but they were willing to eat money, and a team like Florida took a gamble on it. And it worked out in their favor. I think that there's teams who'd be willing to do that with Morgan Rielly, where if they can insulate him properly, get him with the right partner, put him in the proper minutes, get him, on a pairing that you don't have to play him so much in the defensive end, strictly offensive zone time, they can definitely find value in that guy, especially if he's only at $5 million as opposed to 7.25.
Yeah, that's essentially what it becomes, right? Is how do you ensure that not only do you get the most out of it, but you're also not digging yourself in a hole where you're maybe taking on more than you feel you need to get something back. And look, if it means getting a decent return, and we know the cap is going to continue to go up.
Mm-hmm.
It's become very increasingly difficult to bring in free agents.
Mm-hmm.
The Leafs had all this cap space, and it's like we got Dakota Joshua, Matthias Michelli.
They traded for those guys. They didn't even sign them. They traded for those guys.
Like they couldn't even who was I'm trying to think who was their big signing from the offseason. I don't really think there was
Zeta. That's who they signed day one.
They could guys not attract free agents. So guess what? Teams are now having to realize, okay, the benefit of the salary cap being where it is now is you can make trades and bring in things and make changes that way. It definitely wasn't, especially with so many players deciding to stay with teams. That's what's really hurt. There are some potential players. I mean, we'll get to it, when we get closer to the that time to talk about players that can go and try to sign, but
there's not a lot. I looked at the list yesterday.
There's like one. Bleak. I know there's one defenseman I want the Leafs to go after, and getting the player that I'm thinking of kind of also makes
we can say the name.
It's Darren Radish. So you go and you get a Darren Radish. It makes Morgan Rielly you don't need Morgan Rielly if you have a Darren Radish. Right. You're getting a guy who is going to be on your top power play. He's going to be one of your top contributors offensively. That's where you could see the reason to move on from Morgan Rielly, because you already will have a replacement.
Yeah, there's multiple reasons I think to move on from Morgan Rielly. Regardless if they bring in a Darren Radish or not, I think that this will still very much be a conversation all summer long. But I wonder if it's possible if he can reinvent himself or at least could play well enough at the Worlds to get his trade value back a little bit. We've seen it before where a guy goes and has a great World Championships, and all of a sudden, there might be a little bit more intrigue in that player because he was put in a different situation. That wasn't the struggling Toronto Maple Leafs, and all of a sudden it looked good, right? And now you're thinking to yourself, okay, so in a different setup, under a different coach, different systems, playing with different players, maybe this guy actually, it looked as though he looked better at the World Championships. Maybe in our situation, we can get him looking more like that than what he gave for the Toronto Maple Leafs this season. So it's going to be interesting to see if Rielly can play well, bump up that trade value a little bit. I think that'd be best case scenario for him and for the Leafs going into the summer, and whoever ends up being the general manager for Toronto. Let's get into that conversation because there's a smidgen of an update about that. We'll get into that next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Warby Parker. Spring is here. Weddings, trips, rooftop hangs, basically a lot more photos getting taken. If you wear glasses, you're wearing them at all of these moments. So if you don't love your frames, you're going to feel it pretty quickly. That's where Warby Parker helps out. They've completely changed how easy it is to find glasses you actually like. The virtual try-on lets you see how frames look on your face right from your phone. Just point your camera and you could try on tons of styles in real time. The frames look great. They're high quality, and you'll get a lot of compliments just wearing them out. And honestly, for the price, it's hard to beat. Prescription glasses starting at just $95. So you're not sacrificing style or quality. And Warby Parker has everything in one place: glasses, sunglasses, contacts, even eye exams. So it just simplifies everything for you. Warby Parker glasses starting at $95 and include prescription lenses with anti-reflective, scratch-resistant coatings. Many Warby Parker locations offer a comprehensive eye exam starting at $85. It's the perfect time to upgrade your glasses for spring. Buy one prescription pair, Get 20% off any additional prescription pairs at warbyparker.com/lockedonnhl. That's 20% off additional prescription pairs when you go to warbyparker.com/lockedonnhl. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as always. Probably should let's get our names back up there. Boom.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know what happened there. But we're back. We're here each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, with brand new episodes of the Locked On Leafs podcast, all the way through the playoffs, all the way through the off season, and we'll bring you right back around to the start of next season. Who that GM is going to be leading the charge next year, we are still on pins and needles trying to figure that out. However, there may have been a couple of crumbs that were left behind today by some of the insiders. What's the latest in the Leafs GM search that we're hearing, Dave?
Well, so on Oilers Now, so an Oilers show, Elliot Friedman was on talking, and I'm sure they're like, "Oh, how about those Leafs?" Because that's what everyone around the NHL does.
You're about to get eliminated. You're on the precipice of elimination, and you're asking about the Toronto Maple Leafs. We don't bring it upon ourselves, okay? It's the people around the rest of the hockey world that always want to talk about us. We didn't ask this for this, okay? I just want to put that out there. Anyways, continue.
Yep, nope, exactly. And so, essentially, Elliot Friedman said that the Leafs, it's all, and he talked about this on 32 Thoughts. It all comes down to Mats Sundin. We are now waiting for Mats Sundin's decision. If he says yes, it's going to be a Mats Sundin, John Chayka, combination in Toronto.
Is that like basically confirmed that that's what we're waiting on?
Like Kyprios said, he'd heard whispers that Sundin had been looking for a house in Toronto.
Oh, so he's coming back. What if he doesn't find a house that he likes? He's not going to take the job.
I think he should.
You're house hunting. You've taken the job.
It's not like he doesn't know the city, what he's looking for.
Right. I don't know.
Maybe the search firm can find Sundin a house.
There you go. Put them to use, because I don't think it took a genius to find Mats Sundin and John Chayka. Like, let's be honest here.
If anything, if they had asked us, John Chayka wouldn't have been in the car. He would have been John who?
Yeah, he wouldn't have been on my short list. Definitely would not have been on my short list. Although when you look at what Keith Pelly wants in a general manager, he does check a lot of those boxes, theoretically. Whether or not those those boxes will lead to success, I guess remains to be seen. Okay, so we're waiting to hear on Sundin, and if that's the case, it's a leaning towards a Sundin-Chayka pairing. I guess that means what? Sundin takes over as president, Chayka as GM? Like, is that what we're hearing?
Kyprios
like a Shandy Diva situation?
Yeah, so Kyprios also said the assumption is Sundin may have head of hockey ops on the table. So that to me is what, like, initially we talked about this, that Sundin, it sounded like it wasn't exactly him coming in as just like an advisor. Like, this was them pulling out the red carpet for him to have a pretty significant role. And this is why it's like Sundin as an advisor coming in wouldn't take this long. It's the fact that he's committing as basically, the Brendan Shanahan role.
Right.
Right. And there was a and I'll give Wollaston Relander. Is that Nylander Thews? The account that everyone uses to radio insiders now. He had this to say, which I found quite interesting. He was giving his thoughts on like if Sundin would actually be a good executive. But Mike Johnson was speaking about Sundin in a conversation he had with him during the Olympics. He says Sundin had some opinions. They're not weak about what the Leafs need to do.
Okay. All right.
So to me, this works if Mats Sundin comes in and basically does what Shanahan maybe wasn't willing to do. And what he comes in and it's like, well, the Leafs this needs to change, or this needs to get back to where it's supposed to be.
Sundin's not indebted to the core the way that Shanny was, right?
Exactly.
Like, don't get me wrong. He probably has a relationship with Nylander, probably has a relationship with Matthews, with Max Domi.
Yeah, he knows.
Like,
Well, Max told me for sure. Like those
well, I
guys,
know. That's what I mean. So like,
Yeah.
it's not like, I'm not saying that he doesn't completely know these guys and it's going to be
Yeah.
easy for him to be like, I don't care about you. You're gone. Like often we see GMs come in and if you're part of the old regime, very simple to kind of cast you aside and get rid of you. There's still going to be relationship there with Mats Sundin, right? He knows these people pretty well. That being said, like if he's got strong opinions on what needs to be done, I'd imagine that he'll have no problem with making those tough decisions. I would think that is going to be a criteria for anyone who takes a position is going to have to make some tough decisions. And one of those being like trading Morgan Rielly, like we just talked about, and having that hard conversation. Hey, look, it's been a great, what's he been here now? 12, 13 years?
Been here since 2012.
Yeah,
14
years. It's been a great 14 years here, Mo. You've been a terrific Maple Leaf. It's just not working anymore. We love to go in a different direction. We'll help facilitate this. Is there a couple teams that you'd like to go to that you'd wave to? But it just really seems like it's time for us to move on. You need to have that conversation. That conversation needs to take place this summer. And hopefully Mats Sundin is willing to do that if that's the case. If not Chayka, like I guess both of them together. For Chayka, I mean, the guy's a computer, so he should have no emotion and should be able to make deals at any point, especially
just
for guys.
Ask the AI what he should do.
Exactly. AI will probably do that. We should make a segment of that. Ask AI. Have you tried that before? What does AI say? The Maple Leafs team. Let me open up Chat GPT.
Just put it into like Chat or Claude. What do you think about the Leafs going with a Sundin-Chayka front office pairing and see
what do you think of the Maple Leafs hiring Sundin and John Chayka as a front office duo?
I'd be very curious to see.
Let's see.
Uh-oh.
I actually think it's a fascinating combo and probably the most interesting direction the Maple Leafs could take right now. On paper, Mats Sundin and John Chayka would basically be Toronto trying to merge credibility and culture, modern analytics and cap strategy, along with player respect and organizational accountability, which is something that they've lacked for years. Sundin brings one thing the Leafs have never really had in this era, a universally respected franchise figure who isn't part of the old MLSE politics machine. Players would listen to him immediately. He represents professionalism, calm leadership, and accountability. All traits Leaf fans constantly complain this core lacks. While Chayka is the opposite side of the equation, he's one of the NHL's most aggressively analytical thinkers. Even though his Arizona exit remains controversial, a lot of hockey people still respect the ideas he brought into roster construction years before most teams caught up. The fit only works, though, if the power structure is clear, with Sundin as the president, advisor and culture guy, Chayka as the day-to-day architect and cap strategist. Then it could genuinely work. Okay.
So Chad is and this is why it's happening, because somebody within MLSE went into Chat GPT and says, "What do you think?"
AI approved it. AI approves this. AI approves the Chayka Sundin hire, and that's what what the hell do you need a search firm for? Just go to Chat GPT, which is free. It's not even, you don't have to pay millions of dollars for this device, for this AI device, and just search in, hey, would this work? Boom. All of a sudden, yeah, sounds like it's a good plan. It does go on to say, though, Dave, the bigger question for ChatGPT, so the bigger question for me is Chayka. Has he matured enough after the Arizona situation? Can he handle the Toronto media pressure? Can analytics first thinking survive in the most emotional market in hockey? Because Toronto is not Arizona. Every move becomes a national debate within 6 minutes. But stylistically, it does make sense. The Leafs desperately need fresh thinking. Running back versions of the same management philosophy clearly hasn't worked. So AI and ChatGPT on board. That's what they say about it. They're on board with it. They actually like the mesh, assuming Chayka is ready and has learned from his mistakes with Arizona. which I guess you would hope is the case, AI seems to be a fan. They seem to sign off, which is probably why the Maple Leafs and MLSE and what the hell's his name? The president. Why am I blanking?
Of
MLSE.
Keith Pelly.
Keith Pelly.
And apparently
that
that guy we were talking about, his advisor.
Yeah. That random guy who just randomly has now popped up and is the right-hand man.
Humes Tirani.
Sure. Yeah. Him's
I don't even know how to say his name.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but no.
But apparently he makes decisions for the Toronto Maple Leafs organization. One of which could be hiring the Sundin-Chayka combination here in Toronto. Not one that I would have chose, but it sounds like
the only thing I'm clinging John Chayka joining this team.
Yeah.
The only thing is that as much as we wanted to call MLSE a disaster right now with everything that's been kind of going on, they're not Alex Marullo.
No,
that was a disgrace to the NHL that they actually somehow tried to keep that relationship going as long as it did. And it wasn't good between him and Chayka. Now, Chayka did some things that were not good. He doesn't have a clean record himself, but he had an owner that was absolute. Like, I don't know how anyone would have actually wanted to work for that person. And the NHL to do what they did to get that organization, that team out of Arizona, should say all that needs to be said about the way that organization was run. But at the end of the day, too, it's just like, do you need to go full analytics with your GM guy? Like, do you have to go down this road? Like, there are guys within the league that are pretty good with analytics. You know who I was listening to actually today? Adam Oates.
Yeah.
He was on Kipper and Born. Hearing him talk about data and how he uses data to talk about teams' performances, I'm like, if that's what we're going to get, that makes sense. I'd rather just have a guy like Adam Oates be the one to do it, because he actually has applied it as a coach.
Yeah.
And he has a good track record.
I'll say this too. Like, we were going to talk about it earlier in the week, and we didn't really discuss it. But did you hear Sonny Mehta's press conference when he was introduced in New Jersey? So he came out and he's like, I don't know how I got pointed as an analytics guy. He's like, I never was that. He's like, I believe in analytics. I think they have a purpose, but he believes in hockey. Like, he's more of a hockey guy and just happens to have a background in analytics. And he's like, you have to blend the two together though. And I think that's the proper way to do it. I think everybody would agree that that's the proper way to do it. Didn't seem like Chayka blended it very well in his first go around in the league as a general manager with the Yotes, but maybe he's learned from it, right? Maybe he has, and if that's the case, then perhaps it'll work out a lot better than it did his first time when he was with the Arizona Coyotes.
My only thing.
It also isn't set in stone yet either.
No, we're talking as if this is a done deal. It's not a done deal yet. The only thing, and we talked about this so much, why do they have to be a pairing? Why are they coming in together? Why didn't you just make your effort and your sole mission, your main focus, let's get Mats Sundin on board. Then let's ask our new head of hockey ops, all right, we need to find a GM. Who do you think? What do you think?
Maybe he did ask. Maybe that's why, like, they're waiting and they're going to announce it as a combination. Because, like, what if Sundin says no? Are they going to go in a different direction at GM?
That's the part I'm wondering.
Well, let's pause because we got a break. Let's pause and let's come back and let's talk about that. What if Sundin says no? Is Chayka still going to be the apple of the eye of MLSE? Let's have that chat next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure is on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. You're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Today's show is also brought to you by a new sponsor of the show, and that is Kalshi. The hunt for the Stanley Cup is on, and now you can trade every game on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade every single playoff game, every series, the conference finals, and the Stanley Cup final. Just go to Kalshi, and you can look up stats like Pittsburgh taking on Philadelphia. They're right now, Pittsburgh's a 48% chance to win that game. Philly is at a 53%. So depending on who you go, the payout could be $182.66 if you do a $100 trade. And this is if they were to win the series. As the playoffs heat up, those numbers move in real time, and you could buy in or out at any time. Look, you can even look at like Montreal is trading at a 40% chance to win it all, meaning a $100 trade pays out $157.09. So if they take it to the Stanley Cup as the playoffs heat up, those numbers move in real time, and you can buy in or out at any time. So on Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house, and as the probabilities change, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10. Kalshi, Kalshi. Trade on.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti. We're chatting about the latest news in Leafland, where it sounds like the Leafs are angling to try and get Mats Sundin and John Chayka as a duo for the president and general manager position within the Toronto Maple Leafs organization. And just one more little piece of ChatGPT AI information for you about the duo. And I actually kind of like the way that they lay this out. It said, there's Sundin could basically be the trusted adult in the room while Chayka handles the innovative side, which I kind of like the thought of that, I will say. Because if Chayka, because part of the problem with John Chayka when he was in Arizona, I remember there was this one ESPN, some came out and he often gets talked about. He believes he's the smartest guy in the room. I don't remember who said it, but I remember that being kind of a thing, and it rubbed people the wrong way. And he was always thought he was, right, obviously, because he was the smartest in the room.
He was also president, so he probably felt that entitlement as well.
Right. I don't think you can do that if Mats Sundin is above you, though, especially when it comes to hockey. Like, you may have a theory on some numbers and analytics, but, Sundin should, and it appears would be willing to check Chayka if need be, which, probably would make him a much better GM if he had someone to kind of hold him accountable. And that was not the case in Arizona. Sundin at least could do that here in Toronto, assuming Mats Sundin has the right answers as well. We are also kind of assuming, maybe Sundin also doesn't have the right answers. It's possible, but I thought that was kind of interesting. But I had asked you a question before we went to break. What if Sundin says no? Is Chayka still the guy?
Did you ask chat what they thought?
Oh no, I didn't.
That's the part here. It almost seems as if there must be a firm yes somewhere. Like Sundin must be leaning towards for this to get to this stage.
I would think so.
It would be absolutely disastrous if it didn't. At this rate, if it doesn't happen, will that be seen as like a panic? What the heck? Last minute change up where now they got to kind of either go back to the drawing board or a big part of their plan now changes.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seems like the Leafs have basically taken a briefcase of money, given it to Sundin and said, here you go. But we don't have any other, this is the option. There's no other briefcase that we're offering to anybody else. It is yours.
That kind of scares me that there's no plan B. They're just hoping Sundin's willing to take the option, all right, take the job and pair him up with Chayka. Because again, what I just spoke about, right? What ChatGPT very eloquently said is, this could work because Sundin could be the adult in the room. That'll allow Chayka to be more of the innovative guy, but at the same time can be held accountable by a guy like Sundin ahead of him. If he's not there, I don't know if you feel as strongly about bringing in Chayka to be, the guy, to be the GM. That's kind of where I think maybe the Leafs have that same thought, where it's like Chayka only works if Sundin's here, but if not, maybe this is plan B. And it's, was it Scott
White?
Scott White? Yeah, I was gonna say Miller.
Imagine if you're Scott White. Let's say I'm just throwing this out as a hypothetical. Imagine it all falls apart or it doesn't happen. Sundin's out, maybe Chayka's out. Imagine if Scott White gets put up. It ends up being Scott White being brought in. He's up there and it says, so how do you feel about being number 2, the plan B? Or something did you what was did you think that just imagine, or even I'm even asking Scott White, but asking Keith Pelley, what happened with Sundin? This is where the Leafs, I'll give them credit. They usually have tried to keep these things very quiet, or the moment that they know something is about to leak or about to get out there, they try to get ahead and just, okay, it's out there, let's just go and get it done. I mean, Brad Treliving, Treliving basically says, you better get this. If you're gonna let me go. I also think it was probably they knew it was going to be getting out there, so let's just get this done and rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
I know they can't just on a whim just be like, oh yeah, by the way, here's our president, because obviously someone has to agree to that.
Right.
But yeah, it's messy. It's getting messy in that there's now a lot, as we said, you're basically putting your eggs into the Sundin basket, and he holds all the cards.
Yeah.
Maybe, personally, I'm wondering, is that something Sundin is maybe playing to his advantage in getting what he needs in a deal from the Leafs?
Possibly.
And if I'm Sundin personally, with the way things have been going, with the way that the last few years have gone from the Shanahan exit to Keith Pelley putting his cards into the Treliving basket.
Hey, get yours, man. Get yours. Why not?
Not only that, by the way, what you were doing before, where you were in there in the trade room and offering out trades on a paper for the guys to look at, that ain't happening with me here. If I'm Sundin and the Leafs really want Sundin, I know he has a feel like I'm telling them, no, that stuff does not happen.
Yeah, Mats Sundin walks in day one, walks up to the president of MLSE, looks him dead in the eyes and says, I'm here, I'm starting. Toodaloo, pal. We'll see you at the end of the year. You have 6
other things on your plate. Go handle that. Go look at TFC, go handle that stuff that's happening. Go
the Argos starting up. Go figure it out.
Yeah, the Marlies are in the playoffs. You can go watch them play right now. I mean, I'll come join you eventually. But
yeah.
Like if I'm Sundin, if I was in Sundin's shoes, that's what I would do. I would just like, you want me?
I think that's the point, right? I do believe, regardless of Keith Pelly, whether or not he will come out publicly and say it, I think he believes that he screwed up by not replacing Shanahan last year, right? I don't think he believes that he is capable, or now he knows that True Living was incapable of filling both shoes. And especially if you bring in an inexperienced guy like Chayka, or you bring in, Scott White, or you bring in any of these other names that have been bandied about who have never been in these positions, let alone in Toronto of all places. I think that he knows I need someone in place, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I need to bring someone in who does. And I think Mats Sundin knows a thing or two about hockey. I think that he's proven that in his long historic career, right? So especially when it comes to knowing a thing or two about the market and dealing with the market and doing the things that presidents deal with, because Keith Pelly just can't, right? He's not going to go and sit down with season ticket holders and wow you, right? People aren't going to be excited to go to a season ticket holder conference and talk to Keith Pelly. But they'll be excited about that event if Matt Sundin is there. Their hero from when they were a kid. So he checks a lot of boxes. He's a smart hockey person. I understand why the Maple Leafs, are waiting on him at this point. But if he says no, it does feel like a house of cards could kind of collapse here. But it feels like it's going to happen.
I'll make one last final note on this. My final thought. I cover the Argos. You know this. A lot of people know this.
Yep.
I remember when they brought back Michael Pinball Clemens in 2019.
Yeah.
He declined, by the way, a couple times.
Okay.
Then he realized how bad it was getting, and he felt he had to come back to save it. And the one thing he said in his press conference is, I'm not going to be the smartest guy in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to surround myself with people who I can lean on and who might be smarter than me to get me out of it.
That's what good leaders do.
If I hope Keith Pelly had a conversation with Pinball about that, and
you would hope,
get some insight into a team that's, I know I'm not going to get into the whole CFL and them winning Grey Cups when other teams in Toronto haven't done anything, but at the end of the day,
hey, Pinball brought him back a title, right? Two championships since he came back. Now there's only 9 teams, and now 8 of the 9 teams are going to make the playoffs. But it's a conversation for another day. I think it's a good parallel, though. I do think it's a good parallel, right? Where there had been success of another MLSC franchise going out, bringing back a legend who knows the game inside and out, and acting as that presidential role to get the ship back on course. And I think they're hoping the same thing could happen here with Mats. And obviously Leaf fans, and us included, hope that that's the case as well. Did you have any more final thoughts?
Can we just finally get this done?
I know. Like it does seem like it's going to happen, though. Like it felt like it was.
Honestly, the Marlies playoffs might finish by the time this thing is all done.
I mean, at the very least, has to be done by May 5th, right? And then Matt Sundin will be in attendance
next week, guys.
next week. Is it really?
It's next Tuesday, man.
Holy smokes, it is too. Holy crap.
That's what I'm saying. Let's get this done, please.
Yeah. We're within a week of the
while we're
lottery.
doing our NHL draft lottery show, guaranteed.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasting platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at _Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.